Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everything Iconic with me, Danny Pellegrino. I'm so excited. I'm here with the one and only Lisa Ling. Lisa, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so excited. I mean, I know people love you. Obviously, everyone loves you, but I love you from the View. I'm a View like fanatic. I am the kind of person who watches it every night before bed to this day.
I
So
love it.
I'm a View fanatic, and then my boyfriend is obsessed with your CNN show and your work on Oprah's show. Like he's big into the documentary space. So this is like a big moment in our household today.
Well,
So
thank you. Thank you so much.
tell me a little bit about the CNN show. You're going into the eighth season.
Yes.
What do we have to look forward to this season?
Well, this season, our series, This Is Life, it's a documentary series that really explores different issues or subcultures in America. But this season, we're doing something a little bit different. Because of COVID, we had to pivot a little bit. Our show is generally one that is very emotional and sometimes very physical. Because of our shooting restrictions, we had to kind of pivot a little bit. And so every episode this season is grounded in a moment in history that really gives us a sense of where we are now. Defining moments that didn't make it into our history books, but have impacted our lives today. And I got to tell you, I have learned so much. And it's interesting that since we started producing this season, one of the fiercest debates going on in our government, in school districts, in local legislatures, and even homes is around what kinds of history to teach our kids. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really interesting because it's so imperative to me and always has been to understand our history because it allows us to know where we belong, but also to examine how we can move forward in a way that might be different because it hasn't been working.
Right. A lot of the topics are really heavy. I'm curious, do you take a lot of that heaviness home when you're done shooting, or are you able to sort of let it go after you're done with the work of it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a tough question, and I'm grateful that I have these incredible team members who are out in the field with me. And I'm not going to lie, there are moments when after we've finished a shoot, we'll all get into the car and just like start crying together. But every episode also ends with something hopeful. Because at the end of the day, no matter what, there is always, I'm a glass half full person. There is either something that we can do, or by raising awareness, there is always light. I've always found that wherever there is darkness, there is always light. But these shows, I'm proud to say, I mean, I've always loved history, but I think we've done something different with these episodes, which is we have drawn connections between those moments and today. And I like to think that when you watch these shows, you will not only be entertained, I mean, it is TV after all, but you will walk away more educated, more aware, and ultimately, I think, a more well-versed and better human being.
I mean, the topics you cover on the show, up until season 8, and I got a chance to see the premiere, but you make everything so accessible in a way that I think a lot of other news outlets don't. But I mean, you have such a history with journalism. I wonder what you make of the field right now, where it stands, particularly looking at something like social media. I was just watching the 60 Minutes the other night where they were talking about how this news spreads on Facebook, and there was the Facebook whistleblower. And I'm curious what your take is on how news spreads today.
Well, we have an episode about conspiracy theories that will be airing as part of this season. And I hope people take the time to watch it because I think it really gives people greater insights into how we got to where we got today. I mean, look, conspiracy theories have always been around, but what's different now is how quickly they spread on social media. And look, over the last 4.5 years, when you have a president in Donald Trump who disavows mainstream media completely, people need to get their information somewhere, right? And so they go online, they'll often seek out things on YouTube, which I actually think is the most dangerous platform for the spread of this information, even more than Facebook. And they plug in something that they may have heard that may in fact be conspiratorial in nature. And what happens? Their feed immediately populates with like information. And for people who aren't able to distinguish fact from fiction and really sort of disseminate like what is, or understand that some of what they're seeing may not be valid, and they're not accustomed to looking at media with a critical eye. This is how we've gotten to this place. And look, mainstream media, there is a lot of opinion involved, right? I mean, many of the commentators you see on mainstream news outlets are spewing their own opinions, but that doesn't mean it's fake. And when reporters are out there reporting, it has to be fact checked up the wazoo. I mean, truly, there is such caution that is exercised when presenting news and reporting information. And if there are errors, which inevitably there will be sometimes, there will be an apology and an acknowledgement, and the outlets will right those wrongs. So to have totally disavowed mainstream media as fake, I just think it's still shocking to me, but that explains the rise of misinformation, because people are seeking alternative sources that fit their, the things that they espouse.
So what do we do? I mean, if you see someone, friends or family on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, sharing something, I think you and I went to journalism school too. And it's like, I feel like I have a good grasp on being able to sort out what is true, looking at the outlets of where this information is coming from. What do you suggest we do, or how do we approach people who we see sharing this kind of information?
I mean, I would ask people to give their sources and corroborate those sources. I know for me, when I post something or repost something, I try to verify that information with as many different legitimate sources as I can before I will post it. And recognizing that media can be biased. Again, bias doesn't mean it's fake. And so I will really try to do my homework. And I think we really are at a place where we need to do that. And I also would encourage schools to start teaching more media literacy so that young people understand where their information is coming from. Quite frankly, it's actually older people that need the middle media literacy classes more. The people who are most vulnerable to conspiracy theories, it turns out, are baby boomers and even the older baby boomers, because again, they weren't raised in a culture where they had to question what they were seeing. And when your YouTube feeds populates with all this information, and it's like the same kind of reporting, even though it's fake, you don't understand that because look at there are all these videos that corroborate what I inputted.
Why do you think YouTube is worse than, let's say, Facebook?
I think YouTube, personally, I think that there are danger to all of them. Twitter has now sort of imposed some standards, right, or regulations about misinformation. The problem with YouTube is that you can post something, and again, your feed populates with like information, and does not come with any warnings,
disclaimers,
right? Or disclaimers that what you're reading or what you're seeing may not be valid. So I think that Facebook and Twitter have gotten a lot of attention, but I think we need to really examine YouTube. I mean, my mother-in-law's church friends during the election were just spewing this crazy information, and it was because they have switched from mainstream media to get their news and information from sources like YouTube.
It's so scary. And the other day, there was this big outage at Facebook. It impacted Facebook, Instagram, and it really worried me, just first of all, knowing my own dependence on these forms of social media and seeing how many times I was checking to see if it was back up. But then also worrying me because this one corporation is controlling so much of our day, and with social media. So much of social media is just this one entity. And I don't know if I ever really even noticed until that happened, of the fact that Facebook, Instagram, that WhatsApp, they're all connected. They're all run by the same company. And that's scary to me.
Well, that's scary. And also when you think about kids, and how, look, kids that have when surveys have been conducted, I'm part of an organization called the California Partners Project, and one of our main issues is the tech's impact on young minds. And so we've conducted studies, and every single teenager that we surveyed for our tech study said that social media makes them feel worse. So why are we allowing our kids to get on it? I mean, I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, so forgive me if it's conspiratorial, but I heard that
we don't fact check here on Everything Iconic, but we encourage the listeners to, though.
Well, I heard that Instagram was thinking about putting out like a page or a service for kids. And I just think, like, what is the benefit for kids to be on social media? It makes them feel worse, right? It addicts them. It's kind of like, it's a time suck. What is the benefit of it? I mean, actually yesterday, even though I was relentlessly checking to see when Instagram would be back up again, I actually got a lot done because I realized there was a problem, and I just put it away, and I was pretty productive. Yeah. More productive than I had been in a while, because I think by default, we just start checking. It's just like it's become, it's this.
I mean, totally. That was a day where I just really realized how many times I check it when I wake up in the morning, when I'm going to bed, or when I'm even just wasting time in the restroom or something like that. It's like I constantly have my phone checking, and it's like, man, I didn't even realize how addicted I am.
Oh, yeah.
I want to switch gears a little bit. You talked about opinion and how so much of news is opinion based, and you started in a medium of The View, which I love. And I'm curious, what do you remember most about your time there? What sort of sticks out to you? You were one of the best ones, Lisa. I need you back there.
Thank you, Danny. It's funny. I actually guest hosted 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I saw it.
It was a surprise. And I said to the women, I said, I am so grateful that I was on The View at a time before social media, because, oh my God, I was on one day and I said something about how, to me, it didn't seem like young people were working as hard or willing to work as hard as I was when I was young. And oh my God, my social media blew up with people, assailing me for expressing that opinion. And I just thought, oh my God, this is one day. I can't believe what the women have to go through. Because look, whatever you think of The View, it is completely, it's unscripted, with the exception of some jokes that are written for people. But for the most part, once you're out there, whatever you say on national TV that day cannot be retracted. And it really opens people up to, such scrutiny, and you have to really be vulnerable but secure to do that job. And so I remember, because people really watched that show, and I remember people getting upset with me about some of the things that I said, or applauding me for things that I said, and just thinking about what that reaction would be like today with social media is dizzying and scary. And while I didn't really feel that it was, I was in the right place, I was so young. I was only in my mid-20s, and even though I had traveled the world for my show, my life experience in terms of my interpersonal, skills in life with against my colleagues, right, was so much more limited, that it was hard. It was hard to sit in that seat with the likes of Barbara Walters and Meredith Vieira and Star Jones. But I learned so much from it. And I don't think that I would be where I am today, or that I could even speak so freely with you today, had I not had that experience on The View.
I love the interview you did with Sarah Haynes for The View podcast. I'm obsessed with The View lore, and I think it's so fascinating, social media. I feel very protective of all the women on The View because I do watch it every night. And I see so clearly how things get construed by media when it comes to The View, because oftentimes a little soundbite will get picked up, and I'll see everyone commenting on Twitter or Instagram or wherever about that one clip. And I'm like, man, you guys need to see the whole thing. Because it's like if you just pull that little bite of Joy or whoever it is, it can become a big thing. And everyone then is giving their opinion on it. And I feel like so protective of all the women, whether I agree with them or not. I think I just want everyone to watch the whole show, and it's enjoyable, and it is meant to be entertainment. I think that's a distinction with The View too. Did you read the book? Did you read The Ladies Who Punch?
I did not read the book. In fact,
Lisa.
I know. I'm embarrassed.
Are you saying you didn't read it, but you secretly read it because you don't want to have to comment?
I honestly have not read it yet.
You have to read it.
Am I in it? Even I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, I read it. It was like a year ago I read it, but yeah, I mean, it's like really juicy stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Barbara seems tough. Have you had any interaction with Barbara as of recently?
Not. It's been a long time, and I hope she's okay. And my interactions with Barbara were always pleasant. I mean, she did kick me under the table a couple of times, and
I love that.
I feel like she, disregarded some of the things that I said. But at the same time, when I think about Barbara's life and her career and the sacrifices that she made to get to where she was, and that lion's den that she lived through and had to experience as one of the few women in a ferociously male dominated world. I have nothing but respect for her. And, I did have some really incredible private moments with her. I mean, she invited me to one of her dinner parties with the late Richard Holbrooke and the late Vernon Jordan. And it was, and I was 26 years old. And it was
amazing.
That, even though she may have disregarded some of the things that I said on the show and in person, like she thought highly enough of me to have invited me to sit alongside those, those incredibly influential people. So I will always be protective of Barbara. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't read it, because I know how some of the co-hosts felt about her. And I didn't want to, I don't know. I just didn't want to know about it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I could totally understand that. It's a juicy read. And I think some people, even people like Rosie, who I love, I'm a humongous Rosie O'Donnell fan. She was just on this show. But I think there's so many sides to everyone. And so it is hard sometimes to just see one side if you do really, really love someone. But I was sort of saying, I love that Barbara kicked you under the table, not because I want her to kick anyone, but I just think I don't know, the idea of Barbara Walters kicking me. She is such a legend. I don't know.
It was kind of cool. Even though it kind of hurt with her pointed toe, pointed Manolo Blahniks, it was kind of cool.
Do you have a good Joy story? Can I get a good Joy or Meredith story?
What I will say about Joy is that she also, we weren't, you might not think we were super close on the show because we didn't sit next to each other and our profiles were so different. But Joy really was very maternal with me. Again, I was the young one on the show and I was in New York for the first time and getting invited to this and that. And I was kind of like, at the time, look, this was 20 years ago, I was like this young it girl in New York, right? And so I would go after the show on many occasions and just lay on Joy's couch and she was like my shrink, because I was away from home. I was away from my parents, and the advice that she imparted was always really valuable, because it was just sort of like whenever I kind of question myself at all, she would just, the way she reacted to things, like, just get rid of him. Just don't call him. Like, why are you wasting your time? Like, it was just like, it was,
so what, who cares?
Yeah. It was like the Italian mother I never had, who just like said it like it was.
Oh, I love it. Lisa, I want to get some of your opinions on some other things that are sort of in the news or the zeitgeist right now. Britney Spears, the Free Britney campaign. Do you have any opinions on that? Have you been following that at all?
So I can't say I've been following it very meticulously. I just kind of talk about it in broad strokes. I will say, though, when I was on The View 20 years ago, Britney was a guest. And this was right in the beginning of her career, before the Pepsi ad, I think, Baby, what's the song?
Baby One More Time.
Baby One More Time. Yeah. That was her song. And I remember seeing that video and just how sexualized it was. But then meeting her in person and how uncomfortable she seemed, and how she had acne. She was just like this young girl who was very normal but scared, but thrust into the spotlight by forces beyond her control. That's honestly how I felt about her when I met her 20 years ago. And so in some ways, it doesn't surprise me, this whole conservatorship story that started to evolve, because even then she really seemed like she didn't have the kind of agency that someone with that big a career would have. Christina Aguilera was also a guest, and the difference between Christina and Britney was so palpable. Like really, Christina was just like so much more, I don't want to say outgoing, but she just seemed like she was so much more in control of herself.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. I mean, all of it.
I got that impression from both Britney and Jessica Simpson. Like both of those young women to me just seemed like they were not in control of themselves.
Interesting. You know, I Jessica's one of my favorites. I love Jessica Simpson, and I just recently read her book, and it's so fascinating to me to look back on that period of the early 2000s with where we're at now, and to see how people, how the media, how the people involved in these young women's careers treated these young women. And obviously hindsight's 2020, but God, it just breaks my heart to see what some of them went through.
Yeah. I mean, they were a piggy bank.
Yeah.
Right. And were in some ways like a victim of trafficking in some ways, you know, and in the way that like, you know, a trafficking victim works really, really hard and doesn't see a penny of what they earn. I mean, in some ways, what's the difference?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Lisa, your show, is there any, tell us about what you have coming up? Like what topics are we covering in season 8? And then also, are there ones that you haven't gotten to that are like on your list for season 9, or things that you're already thinking about you want to cover?
Well, I can't tell you about the topics that we have on the list for season 9. We do have a very robust one.
So there will be a season 9.
Yes.
Okay.
There will be a season 9. I'm hoping to make it to season 10. That would be incredible. But again, this season we're grounding every episode in a historical event. So the first episode is about Vincent Chin, who I said was a young Chinese man who was murdered and accused of being Japanese during this economic downturn in Detroit. We do an episode about conspiracy theories, how they've always been there. You know, they've always plagued our fledgling democracy, but because of social media, they've just kind of run amok. We have an episode about a period in American history when gay people were thought to be a threat to our national security. You know, I think we're all familiar with the debate around like the morality of homosexuality, but there was a time in American history when gay people were actually thought to be a threat, and that was during the Cold War, when people who were homosexual, there wasn't even a word. The word "gay" wasn't even in our lexicon. Were thought to be easily corruptible, and so as a result, tens of thousands of gay people were purged from their government jobs and throughout the military. And we also have an episode. It's one of my favorite that we've ever done. You know, when we hear about gang violence in Chicago, which is weekly these days, I feel like, in all the gun-related violence, we connect what's happening today with something that happened a century ago when housing segregation really took root in Chicago. And so again, it's these opportunities to explore these moments that may have happened a century ago, but still have a lasting impact on how we are doing things today and how we're living today.
Lisa, what do you want your legacy to be? I mean, is that too broad of a question? I mean, when you look back at all you've put out, you've done so much great work, incredible work. Is there a through line that you want people to take away? Honestly,
Danny, like I've never had aspirations of, you know, being the next Oprah or even Barbara Walters. I mean, I did want to be Connie Chung because for obvious reasons, you know, she was the only Asian person on a national stage. But for me, like the fame of it, the celebrity of it isn't what I want my legacy to be. I really want my legacy to be Lisa Ling was someone that really propelled us to think differently, you know, and to better understand our fellow human beings a little bit better, you know. I mean, that's all I really, that's what I hope for. And I hope that my kids can be proud of the work that I've done.
Oh, well, I'm proud of the work that you've done. It's truly been so incredible. I want to run through a couple lightning round questions.
Okay.
First of all, so would you go back to The View full time?
No.
Okay.
Not in the age of social media. No way.
Okay. I ask all of my guests these next two questions: your favorite Mariah Carey song, and then also who would you choose for People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive if you were to choose?
Oh,
It's got to be like an actor, celebrity person.
Okay. My favorite Mariah Carey song is Hero.
A good one. A good one. Classic.
I do love some Mariah.
Me too.
And who would I pick for Sexiest Man? God, that's so hard. That is really, really hard. Probably, God,
I just love how much you're thinking about it. Like that makes me
know,
happy.
I know. The sexiest man to me is this like Taiwanese basketball player who doesn't even speak a word of English. Oh my God, that
What's
guy.
his name? And let me look him up. Do we know his name?
His name is Jet. Actually, he has the same name as my daughter. Are you on social?
Yeah,
right?
let me. Yeah,
Okay,
Jet.
Jet Loose. Hold on. Okay, his handle is Jet Lucid Dream 1988.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm following him. Okay.
I mean, seriously,
I love
have
it.
you ever look at those cheekbones and the tattoos? Yeah, that's like that to me. And by the way, I tell my husband this too. My husband saw him and he was like, yeah, he's pretty hot.
Yeah, he gets it. He gets it. Lisa, anything else you want to tell us about the show? It's coming up. This Is Life, airing Sundays on CNN. I know everyone's going to watch it. You also have a deal with HBO Max. I can't wait to see what you do there. You have a few different things coming up.
I'm doing a show for HBO Max called Takeout, and it's an exploration of Asian American history through the lens of food. And who doesn't love Asian food? And we've already shot the whole season, and the first 2 episodes that we've completed, I got to tell you, like, they're really, really special. And I think anyone who tunes in, whether you're Asian or not, will appreciate it. Because when I say Asian history, I really mean, when I say Asian American history, I really mean American history. This is all of our histories. So I hope people check it out.
The HBO Max is doing amazing documentary work right now. Like, I'm obsessed with it. And obviously CNN has been doing such great work forever. Lisa, what a delight, truly a dream come true to get to talk to you. I've been a fan forever, and I look forward to just following your career. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Danny. Take care.